so looking forward to this presentation.
Thank you so much, Pano. I don't know if testing, everybody hearing me? Doesn't really work? It does. Okay, they say they do. So I'll believe the technology. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here today. I'm sure that you have very long schedules, a lot of books to read, a lot of homework and research to do. And I really appreciate that you're here to listen to something different. What I promise you as Branka is that this is not going to be boring and it's not going to be academic. I apologize if you're waiting for something like really textbook, but this is from real life. And I'll start with some logistics. First of all, this thing that we all have and use, I wish to thank it today, although we are many, many hours on it. Today it saved me like maybe 15 minutes in traffic, but it didn't really help with finding this exact room. So a tip for students, learn your your auditoriums well, because I didn't know where exactly to go. But when we speak about logistics, what I wanted to ask is just to put your phones on silent in case they're not already, so we have uninterrupted session. As you can see there in a small print, I mean, you can find me later on all social media. My name is Branka van der Linden. And my surname may sound Dutch, but I'm actually from Belgrade, from Serbia. And I have been in Cyprus for 22 years, and I'm calling it my home. We're going to touch about entrepreneurs' contribution to sustainable development through integrity and transparency. But you're going to also hear some life hacks from me, because I'm a seasoned entrepreneur. I started many businesses. I lost many businesses. I'm also in the corporate sector for more than 15 years, and currently I am AML and Compliance and Innovation Director at iSpiral, which is a regulatory technology firm. And more than that, I really believe in integrity, and this is why today I'm here on behalf of Cyprus Integrity Forum. And I'll tell about the organization in a little bit, but why I want to take the thanks first. You know, like when we go to these big seminars and big conferences, first they start with this list thanking all the panelists and all the VIP people coming, and then all the audience. And I was thinking, you know, that wastes about 15, 20 minutes of the conference every time, and I couldn't understand why. But I'm in the business of breaking patterns, and I challenge myself and break my own patterns every day. So this thank you is actually very important, because think about individuals and organizations alike. If they don't get the feedback, if they don't feel the acknowledgement, they might not be motivated to move on. So this is my opportunity to say thank you to Cyprus Integrity Forum for giving me this panel speech, and definitely big thank you to University of Cyprus, to the organizers, to Center for Entrepreneurship for catering for this space and hosting this space and time today. Now, the first life hack before we go into the presentation is that we need to love ourselves. And yeah, no, don't worry, this is not about the emotional intelligence speech, but I had experience once before coming and walking through the all the buildings to find the correct one. And I love myself. I love to look nice, to be on high heels, but I love my feet more. So I came in this flat shoes, but as you know, when you go to the events, you need to get prepared, and then you need to look nice, and you're expected to be business-like. So especially in the corporate world, if you're going to be somewhere in the corporate after your studies, then you need to show up in something like this. So life hack number one, always have a spare bag with you, okay, no matter what you do. And then we can actually start with why I'm here today. This is a universal call to action, and you have heard about Sustainable Development Goals, I'm sure, over and over again. A lot in theory. I don't know how much you heard about it in practice, or how much you can practice it yourself, and how you can contribute yourself by developing your own businesses in a sustainable way. And it's about making global business your own business. Why? Because for sustainable development, first of all, what is sustainable development? Can somebody tell me? Anyone? I mean, I don't want it to be a monologue. I really want the open talks and discussions. No one? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So, first of all, dobar dan.
Dobar dan.
And secondly, yeah, so sustainable development is the commitment of a business towards making its business making as little negative impact as possible on nature, on society, on the whole planet in general.
As little negative impact as possible, and we can also turn it in as much positive impact as possible, yes? So basically, having a sustainable business and living sustainably is doing it so you do not harm the future generations and their opportunity to live on this planet too. Now, how does Cyprus Integrity Forum fit in all this? We have been starting our operations since 2010, and we have been established officially from 2011. And we are leading a non-governmental, non-partisan organization for promoting transparency and fighting corruption, because our aim is for our children and the future generations to live in the world that is free from corruption and financial crime and everything that it brings to it. And again, I will come to it that it's not somebody else's business, it's all our business, because we all live in this world. To start the presentation, I want to just touch upon agenda a bit so you know what you can expect from today's talks. First of all, we're going to be talking about sustainability versus profitability, because this is always a challenge. Shareholders want profit. Stakeholders, they are also considerate about the sustainable development goals. And then what about responsibility? Who is accountable at the end of the day? And I want to present you the Racy model, or Racy or Racy code, how do you call it? I don't know if you studied about it in your studies, but we'll touch upon it with a twist again, something that can be used in the entrepreneurship world. Then we are going to talk about bias. Actually, I'm going to start with that. And what is quality education? What is it anyway? What do you expect from your studies? How they're supposed to equip you for your future business, for your future entrepreneurship ventures, to be able to make it in a sustainable way. We're going to talk about inclusive societies, and this is the Sustainable Development Goal 16, which is about justice and peace. The first one that we mentioned about quality education is Sustainable Development Goal 4. And then the one that I consider most important is Partnership for Goals, which is Sustainable Development Goal 17. There are 17 goals, and they have evolved nowadays into the ESG. I think that when you hear ESG, it's a buzzword nowadays, a lot about greenwashing, about companies having to do some new reports. And because my background is in legal and compliance, I will touch upon that a little bit later on as well. Now, in conclusion, we're going to play a game. It's kind of a quiz and let's say not a homework, but just for you to get the appetite of what's coming out there in the real world. Because Center for Entrepreneurship is about equipping you and giving you the power and tools to understand how much you can reach and to use your full potential in this world. So, as a Cyprus Integrity Forum, I already said we are a very proud supporter of this kind of initiatives. Elena Tanu, who is on the board of Cyprus Integrity Forum, but also involved very much with the University of Cyprus, is one of my mentors. And yes, even people of my age have mentors. So it's always necessary to have somebody who has successfully walked the path so they can show you how to walk your talk and how to move onwards in life. And about me, if I need to say one thing, it's that for me integrity is everything. And you will see maybe in my CV on my LinkedIn that I often quote that if you have integrity, nothing else matters. And if you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. It sounds so simple, but it's a very, very deep philosophical teaching behind it. And my integrity was today, towards me, my presence and my body, but also to show up and be presentable for the cameras. You see some networks here. And I don't know how many of you have heard your network is your net worth in entrepreneurship world. Yeah, some hands up. Definitely. The CIF is Cyprus Integrity Forum. And this is the organization together with the ACFE, which is Certified Fraud Examiners, that helps me to walk my talk, that always keep me on the right path and motivate me to always make ethical decisions. Then the G100, it's an organization for women empowerment. So it's about SDG 5 that says that when one woman walks alone and knocks on a door, they're not often open. But when thousands and thousands of women walk behind her or next to her, then it's different for changing the policies, influences the policies, and making the better world. And when we come to that, I just want to pinpoint that even this microphone is made for the male speakers, because attention to detail, and I will say something else, that devil is always in the detail. Male shirts, button on this side, and female shirts, button on this side. And this microphone, if I clip it the way how it's supposed to be, it will go under my shirt. Luckily, I have this prepared for today. But just to observe, to learn little details that can show you how you can innovate, how you can create something new in the world that might be so small but solving a real problem and being necessary for the future. Just a small inspiration. Then BPW, Business Professional Women, for all young ladies here that are striving to get into the business world, it's good to get connected, always to network with quality people, quality events, and to get boosted and supported. BNI, Business Network International, WICCI, it's International Chamber of Commerce, Indian Chamber of Commerce. I'm one of the founding members. Global Women Development Network is USA network that is helping mostly African continent and women to thrive and to explore the rural areas and so on. So what I want to communicate with this is that spread your wings. Not only this library here is your source, you can have many resources worldwide, and what I can say is that it's not about lacking resources, it's about lacking resourcefulness. So always be resourceful, learn how to reach out, to ask for help, and to move on and to find out and do research in a different way. Because you don't need to write anything down. I mean, I have nothing smart to say, but what I do know is how to learn and how to research. And in compliance, you always have to grow this curiosity and be a little bit suspicious and always on a watch of what's happening in the world. So trends in the world, reading the news, subscribing to important newsletters from the valuable and reliable sources, it's something that you can think about. Now, this is a blank screen for the moment. And why is it blank? Because I want to talk about bias. Okay. When I walked in here, you were looking, okay, we're already sitting here, and she came in late. What did you think of first? Then I came here and I started changing my shoes on the stage in front of camera. What did you think of? Did anybody form an opinion? Did you already have like idea like, oh my God, this is going to be boring, or oh, this is going to be very interesting, or this is not for us, what are we doing here? So we take 3 to 7 seconds, very judgmentally, to shape opinion about something on a first look, on a first see. But to fight our unconscious bias and to be able to look forward in the world, we need to learn to observe. And with that in mind, to change a concept a bit, and I have been walking fast-paced to come here through all the buildings. I have no idea where my car is. So this technology, again, I didn't think of pinning the location, so I'll be walking through the dorms later on. But just to start with the fresh eyes, just to close your eyes just for a second. I'm doing the same so I don't see if somebody's speaking or not. And just take one deep breath. When was the last time you did that for yourself? To just slow down the pace. To feel that you are in control how you walk, how you talk, and what you do in your life. Integrity. Let's have a look at some viewpoints. What do you see here? Quick feedback. First thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word, let's say, transparency. What do you see? Anyone? Just describe. Objectively, what do you see? Let's look at the facts. So what's on the picture, on a photo? Go ahead.
Well, clearly it's just glasses
Mm-hmm.
and looking through the lenses more clearly.
So it's glasses, looking through the lenses more clearly. We also see a lot of green. We see nature. We see bright colors, right? And this is a kind of a peaceful way to talk about transparency. And in Cyprus Integrity Forum, transparency is about doing businesses openly. So I'm not talking about proprietary software codes and your business secrets, but I'm talking about your financial statements, how you approach customers, what is your code of conduct and code of ethics in a business that needs to be open to the public. And then, so we all understand what the word transparency is for us, yes? Some hands up? Yeah? How about this? Can you say that this blouse is transparent? Yeah, so words have double meaning. Do not always hook on the words. Always think about context. So when you see a news flash in social media, or even on your textbooks, the title, go deeper into it to read what is it about before you form the opinion. So two very, very different pictures, but both can be associated with word transparency. And if you use the artificial intelligence and feed it this word, it will give you all kinds of data sets that could be related to the word. So always do your own research, do not make assumptions. And let's go a little bit deeper. What about the word integrity? If I say structural integrity, what comes to mind? Yeah, go ahead. Building.
The buildings will build.
Yes, correct. So we have some future engineers here and architects in the room. Yes, it's about structural integrity, about the buildings, of how well they are. Poso stera in panostapotia, ne, milokia linika, kipriaka. Okay, and then I want to talk about integrity from our point of view. And it says that integrity is basically doing the right thing when no one is watching. And why this particular thing? Because I'm coming back to the Sustainable Development Goals. How many of you do you recycle? Very well. I'm very happy to see these numbers. I have two sons. They're 8 and 13, actually almost 9 and 14, and they do recycle. But what amazes me every time is that sometimes I just put the bottle in or don't pay attention on the label, and they come and they pick up the stuff and say, Mom, this doesn't go here, it goes there. So new generations are the one who can make the world better, and you are part of these new generations. And you need to feel like that and act like that. So I appreciate also to learn something from younger people, because it's all about experience and we differently live these worlds. My son is very good at Minecraft. I don't know how many of you heard, didn't hear, play on the phone or not. And he showed me these amazing architectural designs that look something like this university. And then he told me, look, you go down the stairs and there's this building and there's a gym and there's a pool. And I was looking, I was seeing little squares. And he said to me, Mom, can't you see it? And I said, well, not really. And I said, Mom, that's because you don't have a gaming eyes. So yeah, another thing, when we are talking about virtual reality and augmented reality, we're definitely changing. But this brings with itself the risks of our integrity and our ethics. And this is another food for thought that we talk about. So yeah, when we recycle, we should recycle right. So this top, this lid needs to be rinsed and washed before put in the PMD, yeah? And if we don't know the rules, it's good to refresh them from time to time and to look on this plastic bag. It says there clearly what goes in, what doesn't go in. Just takes a little bit attention. And now we come to the Racy Matrix. This is the part that you can write down, or you can Google it later on, doesn't really matter. How many times you have found yourself that you're rushing into something and you feel that there are too many cooks in the kitchen, but no chefs that can actually execute this nice dish? And how many times you heard the story about nobody, anybody, and somebody, when somebody thought that anybody can do it, but nobody did it at the end? Short version. So Racy Matrix is all about accountability. And when we talk about it, first we talk about who is the responsible one. And what does responsibility mean in your own terms? Because responsible can be the one who is the initiator, who is the leader, or simply a project manager, somebody who needs to push things forward. And many of you in the room will maybe recognize yourself as being this role. But these roles move on because we definitely also need somebody who is accountable. This is basically why the boss is the boss, and why when something hits the fan, then we all rush to the boss and say, yeah, it wasn't us, and to solve our problems, including the ESG, the Sustainable Development Goals and environmental social governance that we will touch later upon. And then we have the consulted. Those are the experts on the matter, on the subject matter. And those are people that really know their stuff. So reach out to experts and try to outsource the things that you're not well equipped with. And when we talk about entrepreneurs, I have been mentoring over 100 startups in the last few years. Out of them, only 3 got a serious funding but I'm talking serious funding. And we see that 9 in 10 fails. That's sad statistics, but it's true. And one of the reasons why is because they're not using consultants. Because they get so, they fall in love with their idea so much that they're not ready to pivot, they're not ready to benchmark against the competition, or they are just thinking that their solution is there to solve something, and they're not solving the real problem. So with the consulting and experts on the subject matter, you can always find out different angle. And I'll repeat, I'm in the business of breaking patterns and challenging people because I like to be challenged myself. So then we have the informed people. Those are the active listeners. Active listeners, listening with 2 ears and actually hearing what has been said. And people often say it's about the communication. Everything is in communication. I agree to disagree a bit in a sense that I say it's not about communication. It's about comprehension. And comprehension has to do with how do you pass your message across to somebody. So if IT people are talking with business consultants, talking with accountants, talking with lawyers, talking with developers, it can really go sideways. So the informed people are the active listeners. They're the one that you have to remember to inform, just like you are informing your principal or your professors when you're going to be away from your class. And those are the people who need to keep their opinion to themselves because they need to be informed. They're not consultants. Did anybody have this, let's say, event when you just want to vent out and you want to tell something to somebody and they start immediately giving you advice, which was unsolicited, you didn't ask for it, you just wanted a listening ear? Well, this is something where Racy Matrix can also come in handy. But how do we apply it to the business? Sustainability matrix. This is something that I have been practicing with my startups and also in the environment where I'm working. And it's about ESG, environmental, social governance. What is the governance at the end of the day? It's a set of rules, set of principles and rules that will enable us to do business the right way. So when you look at the ESG letters, first is the environmental considerations. And with these, I invite you to be ethical. And this is where I mentioned before greenwashing. Not to name the companies, but one of the big tobacco companies hired a very clever marketing and tried to spin it in a way that now they're killing less human lives. So now they're doing more for environmental environment. But this is actually greenwashing. And there have been many cases. If you do a search, you can find many case studies about the greenwashing, what it means, and how to recognize it, and how not to fall a victim of it, and how also to prevent it, or to report it for that matter. Because at Integrity Forum, we are there to bring awareness to the society, but we're also there to help the government when they need a different point of view about the integrity and transparency and about anti-corruption policies, about building the proper code of conduct or code of ethics, and having zero tolerance to bribery. And when we talk about bribery, it's also a very vague term, right? We think they do it. And we usually talk about public companies and we talk about politicians mostly. But how many of you have been a victim of a bribe or an offer of a bribe? Or gave bribe yourself? Okay, I'm on the camera, you're not being recorded, so you can be very honest. Yes, it happens to all of us. And I'll tell you one example from a simple life. As most of the ladies in the room, I go to the hairdresser sometimes. And it happened that I went a few times in a row and the same lady was servicing me, so I left the tip, like I always do, because I was happy with the service. What happened next time when I went, she recognized me, she remembered that I'm tipping her, and she put me in front of the line, in front of somebody else, and scribbled on the paper the time I walked in, and she pushed me forward. I caught myself giving a bribe without really understanding that I was doing so. So ignorance is not defense. We need to watch all our moves and be ready to take responsibility for how we act, to walk our talk. And again, this is how integrity comes in my life. Then the social pillar, interaction with humans. Many of us would like to faster get some documents done, You heard so many scandals about purchased diplomas and purchased doctorates and so on. Don't fall a victim of conformity and say, okay, so presidents did it, these famous people in European Union did it, we can do it too. No, you need to be accountable to yourself first. So you can look yourself in the mirror and really observe and be happy about what you see. And then governance. As I said, it's a set of rules, it's a boring things, it's a lot of paper and bureaucracy. But this can also be turned in an interesting way so it can work for your business. You don't need to have a 200 pages manual, but if you're planning to start your own business, start with a simple one-pager. Start drafting what you don't want to happen in your business and start being proactive on how you can prevent it. And there you go, you started your governance for your own company, for your own business. Transparency. How do you do business? Who your counterparties are? Who are your vendors and associates? How do you screen for them? In anti-money laundering, we use the terminology KYC, which is know your client, know your customer, and AML, anti-money laundering. And it's all about finding out what's the business rationale behind the other party that's collaborating with you and who they are, what they really do for a business. Does it add up? Does it make sense? And this is the questions that we all need to ask ourselves when we're doing business with anybody in this world. Especially if you are on social media, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on some portals for career and so on. Make a good research that these people are who they say they are, because there are a lot of scams. Cybersecurity is a big thing nowadays, and there are a lot of fraud and scam online, and people fall victim to it without understanding it. So, task now is to make your own 5 words, 5 pillars, governance for your future business, or even for your studies. Let's say, I don't know how many more years of studies you have. First one, last one, I don't know which, your undergraduate, so how long you're planning still to be studying. So make, let's say, if it's 2 years, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, make for each one a line, a pillar, that what will be your guiding model for that year. Challenge yourself to start putting down things on the paper, because in the old era, everything was working with a handshake, yeah, the gentleman's honor. But nowadays, that's not enforceable in court. And when you come to the court and need to wait 3 or 5 or 7 years to get your right, then it's too late. Your business is already down the drain. So learn of how to clearly express what your expectations are from your business partners, from your co-founders, and from your vendors, and put it down on the paper. So write for yourself some simple guidance. And if you have any questions of what words can come to your mind, please speak out. What happens, think about it, what happens when your business ethics is in conflict with your morale, with your upbringing, with what your family have taught you, and then what your future employer is expecting from you to do? What happens, where you're going to lean? Are you going to look to the steady paycheck in the income, or are you going to say no and you're going to report it or take some actions that you're not part of that whole scheme that's not ethical? COVID has brought many changes, and one of the most known changes is work from home. I'm talking now changes in the business world. How did it impact society? Working from home is no rules, right? There are no cameras watching you, nobody's clocking in and clocking out with a card, and yet you're given this carte blanche, the opportunity to really perform and to schedule your time to be flexible. But with this no rules territory, it comes with a lot of responsibility. Not to slack, not to project, not to make up hours that are not there, not to make a sandwich and eat it for 3 hours. Yeah? So this is also integrity towards yourself. And in order to impact the world and to start changing the world and making the world a better place, whether for ourselves or for the future generations, always starting from ourselves. Asking ourselves every day, did we do the best we could today? And if answer is no, doesn't matter. Start a new slate, clean slate from the day after, and set yourself a goal for a new day. And if the answer is yes, then you can be very proud of yourself and keep going, because it's a journey, it's not about destination, and it's very easy to fall, to misstep, to go down the cliff, and how to come back up. This is where the corrective ethics comes in. Blank. What does blank mean? What did we say? We need to absorb, and then we need to breathe in, close our eyes, and just find this picture in our mind, what's happening, many thoughts coming in. Did we absorb anything? Did we understand anything? Did something resonate? Is the past too fast? Is it slow? And then there is a food for thought. I'm not going to read it because I'm sure that all of you can read. So I want your feedback. How did this make you feel when you first read it? What did it mean to you? Go ahead.
Follow your dreams.
Follow your dreams. Passion. Yes?
Yeah, I was confused, but it doesn't make sense, to be honest. If he's lacking in math, I'm math teacher.
Confused doesn't make sense. You see, two different points of view. Yes, anybody else?
Yes, another viewpoint is, why would you ignore what you're bad at to improve another skill? I mean, that's another viewpoint that's a bit harsh for that.
Yes. And what happens with human beings? We are trained in a certain way. We are brought up in a certain way. And we know in the last 50 years, everything has evolved. But if we are honest to ourselves, education is a little bit staying where it was. And this is why this kind of initiatives are happening for as well, to change the way how we observe and how we think. Because we're human beings. We see angle of 170 degrees. So I see my hands now. If I move it to 180 degrees, what happens? I can't see my hands anymore, right? How much that leaves for the basic math? Another 190 degrees that it's territory behind us that we know nothing about. And what it takes for us to explore it? To change our viewpoint. Now there are two schools. One that says be very, very specialized in one thing and follow your niche, find what you're really good at and passionate about and do only that. And there is another school that says be versatile, have spheric knowledge so you can fit in everything. But who says we have to think linear, that it has to be one or another? How about knowing a little bit about everything, being curious about learning in general, and being a lifelong learner, and then specialize in something you like the most? Yes, so there's always more than two options in life. And yes, some people will hire a math tutor so they can pass their test, because if they don't pass the test, then they cannot move forward to the next class. Some people will be very passionate and continue tennis and said, I don't need a school, I'm a sports athlete. But at a certain age, this stops. We know that sports careers are not forever. And there are many examples lately of retired sportsmen. I don't know if somebody's watching tennis. Yeah? Okay. All right. So, yeah, Deepak Chopra said this. And it's just a food for thought, for you to think what it means to you. There's no right and wrong. There's just a different perspective. Sustainable Development Goals. How many of you had it in the textbooks? How many of you had it in the textbooks? How many of you read it in your curriculum or in some publications or so on? How many of you heard it in the conferences? Yeah? And how many of you know to name all 17 goals, what they're about? Okay. If you try to test me now, I don't know if I'll be able to name them all either exactly by the name who they are, but I know the concept of it. And bottom line of it is just think before you act. So sustainable development goals, they're not growing on a tree like this. And they had been done in 2015 by United Nations because there was a need to change something, to drive the change, and to document it, because I said documentation is very important when you want to embed the change. You cannot start just with something in your mind. When something is in our mind, it's a dream, like somebody said, follow your dream. But when you put it down on the paper, it becomes a plan. And that plan, when you break it into the small steps, becomes action, call to action. And I'll come back to the beginning where I said this is the universal call to action for you to have sustainable businesses in the future. So instead of this tree that is very nicely designed, this is how sustainable goals actually are imagined and how they were supposed to work and parts work. If you look at the index, some goals have been reached, some goals are really going backwards, talking about quality education and gender equality. And when we talk about gender equality, I always correct myself and I say it's not about equality, because we are not equal. Men and women for many reasons are not equal, but we can ask and demand, and we have the right to equal opportunities according to our capabilities and our aspirations. But sadly enough, 70% of the women worldwide are not having more than just basic education. They don't have access to it in many, many countries of the world. A lot of students do not have laptops, mobiles, even the access to the internet. They do it old style, on paper and pen, in a little classrooms. And sometimes we take the world for granted. This is why Sustainable Development Goals needed to be put on the paper, so we start doing something about it. Planet is fine. Planet will be here long after we are gone. Planet doesn't need us. We need the planet. And this is not my wisdom. It has been said by Al Gore many years ago, and I do recommend that you see the documentary because it's very inspirational and eye-opening. You wanted to ask something?
Yeah, by saying planet would be here, but in order to be here, us being able to live in the planet, we have to protect it.
Yes.
We won't be here.
Correct. Planet will be here, but we want to see it.
We won't be anymore.
Exactly. So yes, so this is the protection of the planet and natural resources and all the climate changes is what's happening. So this is where recycling come. This is where bicycles come. Yeah, I know in Cyprus it's very hot and we have 3.5 cars on average per family, which is a shocking amount for a little island. So think about it next time when you are making your purchases. Your cars, is it petrol? Is it diesel? Is it electric? Is it hybrid? What makes more sustainable choices at the end of the day? And then the peace, because the goal 16 is about peace and justice. And I think that we can all agree that in order to be sustainable, you have to have peace, because in a war, nothing flourishes. Everything is, let's say, permitted and everything is forbidden at the same time. And we all know what's happening nowadays in the world. And then you also need justice. You need to feel that what you're doing is actually being acknowledged and is being either approved or being corrected. So justice and law are not always hand in hand. And what I can encourage you as a former law student is not just to read the letter of the law, but to really go deep and understand the spirit of the law. Prosperity that comes when everything else is happening. And what is the common ground to all this? It's the people, isn't it? Because people live with people, people buy from people. Yes, so H to H, not H2O. And for that, this is why I say that the partnership is very important goal. How many of you are cooperating in a sense of doing projects together, doing homework or research together, making partnerships? Start from the little things. It doesn't mean you need to join the peace union between, I don't know, Greece and Turkey. It's about starting small. You, yourself, what you can do. Because we usually say, okay, everybody does it, so what if we are doing it as well when we're talking about ethics? Or we cannot make a change. We cannot do anything ourselves. Yes, we can. starting by little steps, each one of us changing our habits daily. Sustainable development, everyone's business. Did I try to persuade you so far? I tried. If anybody agrees with me that it's everybody's business? No, not so much? Okay, so I need to talk a little bit longer. All right, so Sustainable Development Goal 4, about quality education. So I'm not talking about TikTok, I'm not talking about Wikipedia, I'm not talking about links on YouTube, I'm talking about research, about publications, about Google Scholar. If you still don't know about it, use the Scholar when you're doing your research. And it's about having choices and increasing skills. And this was important enough and recognized by many governments of the world that they made it a goal. Goal 16, to promote peaceful and inclusive societies. Nowadays, again, we hear a lot about diversity and inclusion and what does it all mean. How about discrimination? Think for a moment, when did you feel discriminated? And think whether you have deliberately or undeliberately been discriminative towards somebody else. I have. I come from a foreign country, and always I will be Kseni. Στην Κύπρο, yeah? But I caught myself again in discriminating somebody on a totally ignorant basis. There was this conference, and there was a very tall person next to me. And I looked at him, and yeah, I needed a massage afterwards. My neck was twisted. And I shook his hand, and then I looked at him, and I was thinking, he's tall. And then when he sat down, he had to sit in the first row because he needed to stretch his legs in front of the chair. And then I looked at the colleague next to me and I said to him, this guy is very tall. And he heard me. And then after the break of the conference, he stood up and he told me, you know, all the time people come to me and tell me, oh my God, you're so tall. Or they even ask me at the supermarket to reach something for them from the higher shelf. And I feel like I'm being discriminated. I was shocked. I didn't think or know or recognize that saying to somebody being tall can be discriminative. I wish I was taller. So always think twice before you formulate your words, because words have power. And sometimes you cannot take it back. To be accountable, to have the justice, yeah? And then the partnerships, one of the goals that I promote and I really, really insist on, and this is the network from the first page, all different kind of networks that I'm contributing to. And it's about mobilizing resources, using and sharing what other people don't have, and not taking for granted that if I have it, everybody has it. And about making partnerships also to share not only knowledge, because knowledge can be found in books, but about experiences. Because everybody here in the room has something to share and to teach another person in this room. And I would like to learn a lot from you. Because we are unique and our experiences and τα βιώματα μας are different. Technologies. It's a double sword, yes? That there is a lot of advancement with technology. We have robots that can, the nanobots that can go in our body and do the surgeries. Their hands don't shake like the surgeon that's maybe of certain age. But on the other hand, when we go to the VR, there is this danger that we wouldn't want to come out of it. And there is also this challenge whether when we wake up in the morning, we won't know if we are in a virtual reality of our home or we are in our actual home. And this is as much my responsibility, but your responsibility as well. How do you use it in the future? To build capacity. This is something what we are doing here today. We are sharing different experience, different knowledge, different point of view, many different points of view, and just inspiring you or provoking you or boring you to death to do something different, to show yourself, to show what you can do in this world. And building capacity in a bigger sphere, in a building, in a business, is also about creating something out of nothing. And as a case study, I always use Dubai. Okay? They only had sand. And if anybody of you had experience to fly to Dubai or to see it on a promotional video somewhere on the TV or on in an email newsletter commercial, they have built a lifestyle. They have built something out of nothing. Yes, maybe a lot of you will say it's artificial. There's no green, there's no nature, everything is on the sand. But they're doing business. And I'm telling you, they're doing quite good business. And Cyprus can learn something as a nation from different kind of countries and not compare ourselves benchmarking only with the closest neighbors that are completely different culture, completely different upbringing, and they also have completely different challenges and problems than we do. So always use your benchmarks also with a caution. And tips of the day, but it's not for today, it's for every day. And maybe it's a cliche, but it's something that we need to keep reminding ourselves. Quality education is your right. And if you can't cover everything in the normal channels, in the traditional channels, reach out for a mentor. Because mentors are people who willingly like to share their knowledge, their experience, the accumulated failures they had over life. You know how they said, like, I didn't fail making the light bulb 100 times. I made 100 different varieties and ways to prove how it doesn't work. So again, it's about point of view. And then gender equal opportunities, we talked about it. And unconscious bias. Challenge yourself to catch yourself in your own biases. Call it out. Call it out every time, because this is the only way that the change can happen. If we all see bribery happening and we just write it off to the politicians, nothing will change. If we all see injustice on the cashiers or in the governmental institutions and we don't react to it, we're becoming part of the system. So it is, again, who is responsible and who is accountable. Achieve strong institutions by maintaining peace and justice. And when I talk about peace, it's not only about not having the wars between the countries, it's also keeping the peace with your colleagues, with your fellow students, with your families. And most importantly, who do you need to keep the peace with? Any ideas? Go ahead.
Ourselves.
With ourselves. Yes. Because if you're not in the peace with yourself, you know, like we are human beings, yeah? We are acting on our emotions. So if our emotions are not balanced, it will affect us and it will show in our work, in our studies, in our performance, and in our human interactions. So definitely everything, when you look at it, yes, strong institutions, but it starts from own peace and feeling of justice and sense of what's right and what's wrong. And always growing our morale and examining our ethics. And aim always to become go-to person for partnerships. Are there anyone in the audience who always has teammates who want to study with them and do the research paper together? Yes, some. And are there the ones who are just sitting and waiting to be chosen? And they don't take the action, they don't take the first step, the first move, they leave it to the chance. Another cliche, if we don't write the story of our lives, somebody else will write it for us or will leave us out of it completely. So take a stance. And I preach equal opportunities for women. And I always say to women, don't bicker and take a role of a victim. We have so many roles to play in nowadays. So take the role, claim the role that you feel it belongs to you. And this is how leadership is built. And leadership is not about somebody leading and somebody following, it's about walking hand in hand together. To be sustainable means to be responsible, it means to be accountable. And at Cyprus Integrity Forum, we always aim to have more active members. Anybody can become member, 18 plus, yes? Why? Because if you want to contribute to the society that is better, that is changing, that is without corruption, is without bribery, that you're sick of the system that keeps repeating itself, you're the ones who can make that change. And now, before we continue, I want to play a video, yeah, just to break it a little bit. And I want you remember what we said before, the devil is in the detail, yeah? I want you to carefully watch this video and maybe write down for yourself or just observe. What do you notice? Again, we look at the facts. What's on the video? Who are the players? What's happening? What about the colors? What about, like look at objectively at the facts. And then I'm going to ask you of what you have seen. I just don't know if the sound will be there, but let's see it. Okay. Okay, so how many of you were just looking when the bar will end? How long is the video? Yes? How many of you couldn't understand what's the concept? A few, yeah? How many of you did you notice how many blue helmets were on the video? Yes? And how many looked at how many people, how many workers were wearing a long sleeve? Yeah, some, okay, some good attention to detail. And if I ask you, the first guy on the right that was alone, how many hits it took for him to put the pole all the way down to the ground? No one. Because I asked you to observe and I asked you to watch. And you didn't use your auditory sense to hear. So always try to engage all your senses. Practice to be more observant and aware of what's happening around you. And with that in mind, we are almost at the end. And yeah, now I need to make it presentation mode again. Because now this is my invitation to play. Let's play. We observe. And I want to ask you to write for yourself or to guess or just to decide. We were talking about 3 goals, yes? The quality education, about peace and justice, the inclusive society, and we were talking about partnership for goals. Which photo corresponds to which goal? Have a look quickly. Just your first intuition, don't think too much. Which photo responds to which goal? You have answers? You have opinions? I mean, I could ask how many of you are not going to raise hand no matter what I ask, but okay. So the idea behind it, there is no right and wrong. You can learn how to nourish peace and how to promote justice. You can feel alone in assessing education or studying. You can make solutions for your partnerships, but you could also put it other way around. So you can find solutions through your studies. You can feel that you're alone when it comes to justice, and you can be doing learning all backwards and different way around. There is no right and wrong. There is only our points of view, our backpack, our experiences, and our perspective. And what Cyprus Integrity Forum is here to do today is to invite you to always observe and think of your perspective and give yourself a benefit of a doubt to change that perspective if it might have been not the right path for you. And think about, how do you feel when you do something ethical? What it makes you go through when you catch yourself in unethical behavior? And more importantly, what can you do, each one of you, each one of us, to inspire more people to act ethically? And with that in mind, I do try to empower zeal and zest in everything I do. As I said, I was an entrepreneur. So this is my recommended reads. And I'm not talking about Kindle, PDFs, and something on the screen. I really talk about real books, because there you can underline, you can go back and read it, your eyes are not getting that tired, you take a break from the technology that we were talking about. And these are books that I go back over and over again. Good Economics for Hard Times. It's been written by economic Nobel Prize winner, Sir Banerjee. And it's so good described, this macroeconomics that we have in the world, in so simplistic terms that even my 14-year-old son can understand it. And this is what I appreciated about the book the most. There are many, many views in it and many philosophies, but it's definitely a recommended read. Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And it's all small stuff, one of my life favorites, because what is the line behind it is like, if somebody didn't take out the trash and it was their turn, don't make a big fuss about it. Just pick up the trash and put it in the bin, forget about it. So we don't need to sweat the small stuff, because there's so many big stuff that we can change and we can address in this world. Eat That Frog. It's not about frogs and the princes and kissing the frog to become a prince. It's about doing the things that we don't feel comfortable with, that are pushing us out of our comfort zone or that we are procrastinating on, to do them first thing in the morning. And then, when you feel that accomplishment and achievement, you will have energy and power to go through the end of the day. So Eat That Frog is about not procrastinating and doing things in less time, because we do the hard things first. And then Startup, something for entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs. It's about a lady who was a call center employee, and she was going blind, and then she made a multi-million-dollar business because of her persistence, her perseverance, her ethics, and her integrity. So those are my recommendations for today. I'm aware of your time, I respect your time, so we won't go over. And this is whoever wants to look me up. I'm open for mentorships. I do invite you to come by Cyprus Integrity Forum and hear what we're all about. Look at our website, inform yourself, and always ask the questions. Do the research, because everything that we do in life starts with research first. Sorry, I do not have a QR code. I'm not that new generation. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. We have a Q&A, maybe a few minutes, if somebody has questions. Otherwise, I'll leave you to it. Anyone? No one? No questions? Okay. Please.
So I've been finishing like business bachelor last year.
Yes.
And we had a discipline which was called corporate governance.
Yes.
And we had to write an essay, and during while I was writing this essay, I actually observed that a lot of like big corporations nowadays are really pushed to achieve some higher scores in terms of ESG compliance.
Yeah.
And it was looking like, for me, it was looking like weird, because all of these big corporations, a lot of things are done just artificially in order to achieve these scores. And how do you think, is it possible for like big corporations, which are, they raise a lot of stakeholders around them?
Yeah.
Like, is it possible for them to be at least maybe on some level of compliance with ESG, which you find, I don't know, appropriate nowadays? Is it possible for them without being forced to do it? And do you think, like, are there any, like, maybe do you know some CEOs of some big companies which are who are actually really interested in terms of doing it, not for the reputation, not for the passion to do it, but like as their, I know, inner inspiration to make the world better.
Yes. Thank you. I love your question because it's very much in the alley of what I do. And when we talk about, let's take something modern, blockchain, cryptocurrency, yeah? It's supposed to be decentralized. And now the regulation is coming and a lot of people are complaining it's supposed to be decentralized, so why are you trying to regulate it? And then yet this is where I'm going to take a pass, is that if we are not regulating something, we leave it too much to the opinions of that pillar, of that big corporate, how they want to drive the economy and sustainability. So yes, this is a lot about greenwashing that I mentioned before, that they're doing it artificially, just to show it and to get a score, and governments did do something about it. There is a new directive of the European Union that will require from 2023 all companies over a certain turnover and certain performance to do non-financial reporting on ESGs, just like they're making the financial statements now that shows their numbers and their performance in money terms. So yes, things are being done, and how we can help it. Well, first of all, we are all expecting that it comes from the top. Yes, the influence and the corporate culture of good governance comes from the top. But we, from the sides or from the bottom, can also drive this governance by showing the better way and showing the solutions, coming with constructive solutions and criticism, not just with problems. So I think that this is the way to go. Just do small steps at a time and change and influence one person at a time next to yourself. And then big corporations will, at the end, become corporations of the people and employees that are sitting in these rooms today. So there is an option to change.
Sounds logical. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? I always wanted to say this in my life. Class is dismissed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.